Okay. Aloha class, my group and I will be doing a presentation on Standing Rock. And in this presentation, we'll be talking about what we think it's important for us and for you to know. So Standing Rock, what is Standing Rock? Standing Rock is where indigenous people we're fighting for their water supply. So the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and thousands of other indigenous people and supporters have spent the last few months living at the Oceti-Sakowin camp in North Dakota in peaceful protest against constructions of the Dakota Access Pipeline, which threatens the water supply of the nearby Standing Rock's Sioux Reservation. The Standing Rock name came from a natural formation that resembles a woman with a child on her back. Today, this sacred stone stands on a monument outside the Standing Rock Agency office in Fort Yates, North Dakota. The Sitting Bull is a leader or someone in the Native American tribes that leads and helps the people. He was a Hunkpapa Lakota leader who led his people during years of resistance against United States government policies. This motion happened in 2017, where the Standing Rock Sioux tribe led a 4-day protest in Washington, D.C., culminating in the Native Nations Rise March on March 10th.
Sweet. So like Mel mentioned, all of that led up to a bunch of protests. And in order to generate momentum for their cause and to fight for their land in opposition to the pipeline, the Standing Rock tribe organized runs, horseback rides, and marches. And so a lot of Native nations and non-Native allies, celebrities, politicians, like regular citizens, supported the movement by joining the protesters at the Sacred Stone Camp on the Standing Rock Reservation. At these protests, over 300 tribes were represented at the camps, and they brought attention to the exploitation of Native land. And so in this picture on the left, it shows youth and their allies, and they planned and carried out a 2,000-mile run from North Dakota to Washington, D.C. to bring just like acknowledgement to their cause. And so in response to these protests, there was a lot of police militarization, unwarranted armored vehicles, and law enforcement used automatic rifles, sound cannons, and concussion grenades against water protectors. And so now I'll be showing a video that kind of gives like a timeline of what happened at Standing Rock and what happened at Standing Rock and these protests.
After months of protests, the Army Corps of Engineers is looking into rerouting the Dakota Access Pipeline. This is a major victory for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, but it hasn't come easily. The demonstrations started to really mushroom in terms of public notice and also in terms of size over the summer, when there were numerous confrontations between demonstrators. They call themselves water protectors, and local law enforcement from the Morton County Sheriff's Department. They really put the world on notice that a new and incredibly powerful indigenous and environmental movement was starting to take shape here in the prairies of North Dakota.
Our future lies in the knowledge that we are all of one people. Amen. That this earth is our mother.
These demonstrations and these camps have continued on, for months now. There have been periods of calm where the protesters who say they are peaceful and prayerful have simply walked the roads or walked the fields. But there have also been some really tense clashes with the police. Law enforcement has sprayed demonstrators with water on cold nights. Tear gas has been deployed, and law enforcement say they have been accosted and assaulted in turn by the protesters.
Law enforcement has been very professional and very restrained throughout this whole situation. The protesters are forcing police and us into taking action.
The scene in the camps had largely been very positive and very celebratory in the last couple of days. People were celebrating the arrival of 2,000 veterans to join their cause. They were celebrating the fact that the camps were growing in size and this sense of determination, their desire to stay. Recently, the Department of the Army said that they were not going to allow this pipeline to cross underneath the Missouri River, at least not for the moment.
You know, we'll remain here and we'll stay vigilant until everything is guaranteed. But we are in celebration today, that is for sure.
The biggest X factor is how President-elect Donald Trump will deal with the pipeline issue. Trump has said that he supports completing the pipeline, and he may have the power to undo the decision that stopped it for now. But whatever happens, it is almost a sure thing that there will be people camped out and waiting and watching at Standing Rock.
Okay, so that gave a little bit of an idea of what the protests are like and like the cause that they're fighting. In this next slide, I'll be showing a video about like stories from Standing Rock. Over the summer of 2016, the tribe took legal action and grassroots action. In July, the tribe, represented by Earth Justice, sued the U.S. Army Corps in response to its hasty approval of the pipeline. And so, let me get that video.
Who's here to protect the water?
I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I'm a harmony keeper. I'm committed to stand in solidarity with Standing Rock.
My name is Winona Castro, and I'm from the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. I'm a traditional cook here at Ocheti Shakowee. When we first started, it was like a couple hundred. It grew to like 3,000. It was crazy how, much people that came. Okay, he's gonna pray. Everybody, need your attention. Us women are backbone of our families and backbone of our people.
Oh, nice and snug.
It's beautiful to see all nations representing here, fighting for the same reason, for our earth, for our mother, for our water.
Water is life. Water is sacred. Today our hearts are grieved because we can't carry on the way our ancestors had for 10,000 years. And there's a lot of people here today who carry the same grief as I.
Brother, sister,
All right, so it's my turn now. Okay, so upon carefully reading about the articles that talks about Standing Rock, I also learned that Standing Rock is not just about the protests, or it's not just about the issue about the pipeline and what is happening in Standing Rock. I also see that Standing Rock is an issue about white supremacy and racism in the U.S. because when reading different types of articles that talks about this, I also found out that President Donald Trump, when he was elected as president of the US, he invested money to the pipeline company so that the construction of pipeline in Standing Rock will push through. And yeah, so it is very obvious here that there's white supremacy, which is the belief that white people constitute a superior race and should therefore dominate society, typically to the exclusion or detriment of other racial and ethnic groups, in particular Black or Jewish people or the Native Americans. I also mentioned that there's racism here, and racism, as we learned in our previous class, social work class, that it is the belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially to us, distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. The people who were protesting on this Standing Rock issue are those people, the Native Americans, who are trying to protect their rights. They're trying to protect their place, their sacred sites. They're trying to protect because for them, the water is sacred. For them, water is life. And for them, it is God-given. But I see that there's racism here because based from the definition of itself of the racism, like the people, they see it as an inferior or superior to one another. And for myself, as a major or a social work major, it is important for me to show up, to be able to respond to the call of the leaders and the protesters, and also acknowledging that talking about the water and the pipeline can be easier to digest. But this issue isn't just about that. The main issue here is about the history of oppression that has been happening since then, and that could be more challenging to interact with. And it is important for us, a social work major, to be able to do that. And these people, the Native Americans who are fighting for their rights, they deserve equal treatment, and they should be given equal treatment and justice. The social workers and the government justice system must serve these people equally, despite of their color, despite of their ethnicity and social background. Unfortunately, these Native Americans weren't able to obtain that right away, and they had to be there to fight for their rights. They were oppressed. They were brutally oppressed because of the belief of the poor inside minds of the white and for the Native Americans. And similar to me as a person of color, or who as a person of color who is not a Native person, for me this is not just about fighting for the pipeline, fighting for the water and things like that. It's about those Native Americans fighting for their rights. Unfortunately, they weren't able to obtain that right away because of white supremacy.
So the pros of these protests or the Standing Rock is that the local Standing Rock Sioux tribe and thousands of Native Americans protest against the water supply. They form large amount of group to protect their water supply. And these protesters remained unharmed and remained peacefully, even though that the police or the government respond in violence to stop their protest. There was a time that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and federal agencies approved the slowing down of the pipeline construction or the project around these people's land. And also there were some U.S. senators such as Bernie and Hillary supports the rights of these protesters against the constructions. And the cons of these protests is that this project or the construction of the pipeline is very expensive. It costs like $3.7 billion, and the project or the process was threatening their sacred native lands, and their project or the construction has already disrupted their sacred burial grounds of these people's land. And they also people or these protesters creating more and more people and more camps around these lands where the construction of the pipeline took place. And they also know that if these project goes under river and gets closer to the reservation, there could be a huge damage to their land and cultural heritage. and the police were from the county law, the sheriffs, and some police around the state. They came together and formed their group to go against this protest, and they respond in violence. As you can see the videos that was showing in the beginning, that the police were going against them. They used rubber bullets and other things that was mentioned in the video, and some of the things over here that they go against these protesters or these tribes. And this project or this construction also violates the rights of these people against their law. So I guess that's it. Thank you.